Hi, and welcome to day one here at MWC in the Deloitte booth. I'm joined by Gillian Crossan, our Deloitte Global TMT leader, and Paul Lee, basically the Mobile World Congress guru going back back when it was at Cannes. So, Paul,
That's correct.
Thank you for being here. So, let's start off. Here we are on the show. Is AI everywhere and agentic everywhere, or is that my imagination? Gillian.
AI is absolutely everywhere. Agentic's absolutely everywhere. I think when we were talking at CES, we were talking about it being much more integrated, much more thinking about the whole system and agentifying your whole system, not just random agents. And I'm seeing a lot more of that here as well. It's like deep down in operating systems. It is absolutely everywhere this year.
And a lot of it very telco specific, customer service.
Yep. I saw some really interesting things around customer service getting much more intelligent, much more, end-to-end agentification in customer service, not just for the simpler use cases, but actually the more complex use cases. But also, building AI into a phone and having it actually as part of the operating system for a phone. I was seeing that as well. So things are getting smarter and AI is getting more deeply embedded.
Paul, what about you? You're, probably the biggest AI booster at Deloitte. So I'm curious, what's your take? Because there's always a lot of hype and announcements and so forth. Does this feel any more maybe real than last year or the year before?
Yeah, there's always going to be a mixture of hype and reality, and every year I think the bar for the reality goes up. So some stuff which felt a little bit frothy last year is a bit more substantial this year, and that can be some of the phones, that can be the deployment of AI within the network. There's a lot of stuff on proactive recovery of networks, and all that makes a lot of sense. And for agentic, what I find is there are some descriptions of agentic which are quite profound and comprehensive, and there's also a bit of agentic washing.
Agent washing, love it. Speaking of new terms and speaking of phones and computers, there was news 4 days ago. One of the big firms that forecast this kind of stuff coined the term Ramageddon. So not only is it like Armageddon, just with different letters, and the idea is that rising memory prices are having an enormous impact on the sales of PCs and smartphones. The new estimates from this analyst firm were down about 11% on PC sales and down 13-14%. Which, Paul, on smartphones, it's a billion unit market. We're talking 100+ million phones lower as a result of rising memory prices. I don't think we're seeing that on the show floor. What are you seeing in terms of devices and phones and computers?
So a lot more foldable, rollable screens. So a lot more real estate, both on phones and with laptops. So you actually have that extensibility. You can have screens front, back. You can have cameras front, back. There's a lot of that. I did see the first phone with a privacy screen and thought, why didn't we think of that already? Because of course you need a privacy screen on a phone. You've had it on a laptop for years. So, really interesting display and camera technologies, I think, were the biggest thing I saw.
Yeah, I saw I was going to say privacy, but I'll say privacy.
Privacy.
And what I thought was very clever about it was, so you can have a general physical layer which reduces the light, but it's for the entirety of the screen. But in this particular application, you can determine which applications get hidden and also which bits of the screen. So if you don't want your messages to appear, that can be blacked out, but the rest of the screen is visible. I have no idea how they do that. And it's very much, when we've got almost the end of innovation in phones, I think it's great to see that kind of change coming through.
Now, one of the things that we had said we were going to talk about, and it's weird because Mobile World Congress, it's a bunch of smartphones. It's everything. There's chips and there's computers and there's data centers and there's space and there's robots. So, Gillian, You said you were blown away by one of the robots you saw here. And by the way, this continues the Gillian and Duncan talk about robots 100% of the time from CES. So take it away, Gillian.
So the coolest robot I saw this time, well, I saw a robot that was kind of a bit disturbingly human realistic, but we won't talk about that one so much. But the coolest robot I saw this time was actually from an Asian hospital system. And the robot is a robot nurse, essentially, that the cool thing is it never has to go back to base to recharge itself. It can go up to a stand and replace its battery, so it can always be live. It also is fully integrated into the way that the processes work in the hospital. So they didn't just put voice activation on it for no apparent reason. They actually used badge swipes because that is so ingrained in the hospital system. It can dispense medications. It has a robotic arm. It was just a really cool and very thoughtful implementation with knowledge of the way that the processes work. And I think that's going to be critical for robots moving forward. I also saw a couple of fully synchronous robot arms that could work together. And that is really important for changing the way that, it's one robot arm doing one thing, one doing another. This was fully synchronous robotic arms, which were very cool as well.
As a reminder, we had a prediction this year not talking so much about the humanoid robots, but rather those robotic arms and how they are becoming ever more sophisticated and powerful. Paul, what about you and robots? I hear you got crushed by you were looking up the weight of the robot earlier, and one fell on you earlier today?
Didn't quite fall on me because it was being tethered, and it had to be tethered very securely, otherwise they couldn't have displayed it. So it was a robot that had traveled from CS over to Barcelona, but I made it over here intact. And the thing I asked about was, what's the weight of this robot, just in case it falls on you? And it's about 170 pounds, which is 80 kilos, which is very, very hefty, which is why they had to control it. The thing I was also asking about was, what is it that it can do? And they're trying to get it to do picking and packing. And so always my comparison is, but how does that compare to humans? It's still, with the latest chipset, 1/10 of the speed. And I've looked at some of the other robots around here, and you look at the videos, and they're all sped up. You look at the robots in real life, and they are extremely slow, which is why I'm slowing down in terms of speaking. But it's quite fascinating how you've got this YouTube view of what robots can do, and over here you get the reality, which is distinctly more pedestrian and not yet commercial, I would say.
And we saw that in CES with the world's slowest towel folding robot.
That couldn't open the door of the dryer either.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely limitations. But, I do think that if we truly think about the end-to-end process and build the robots in, then that's a game changer.
Now, this last one I haven't actually rehearsed with you two ahead of time, but I had a meeting with clients this morning, and it was over an hour, and we spent 45 minutes talking about data centers. And so I know that this is Mobile World Congress, and it's not packed to the rafters with data center stuff, but any observations on that side? Because it was certainly something that the clients were asking about. Multiple telcos are offering AI data centers. Some of the big vendors are both the chips as well as the integrators are exhibiting here. Any thoughts on the data center market?
So there's definitely, as you walk around, you see a ton of reference to data centers. You see how telcos are getting more and more into the data center space. There's some technology around cooling for the data centers, not necessarily water cooling, but more of an oil-based cooling, because those GPUs, of course, run much hotter and wear out more quickly when they're hot. So there's definitely a whole piece in and around data centers and sovereignty that is running across this show.
I assume that since we're here in Barcelona, it's olive oil cooling for the data. Sorry, little small joke there. Paul, thoughts on data centers? Anything you've observed?
Yeah, I'll give a comment on data management because I see that a lot. And one of the big themes historically has always been there's more data coming downstream than upstream. But with AI, the question is, do you have to start reconfiguring your networks to allow for a lot more uplink traffic than downlink traffic?
Well, let's push on this one because you and I had an email exchange about this earlier today. You were talking to somebody who said that AI was 93.5% of all upload traffic or something like that?
35% of upload traffic.
And does that feel right
US.
to you?
It doesn't feel right to me. It feels a little bit hopeful. So I asked what the exact base was on which that was measured, and I have to go back tomorrow morning to see what the source of that data set was. But it's part of a big display.
So that feels like a good segue. Come back tomorrow for day 2, LinkedIn Live. I'll be joined by Paul Lee yet again and our colleague Dr. Tim Botke from the European as well as global telecom media and entertainment leader. Thanks for being with us today. See you tomorrow, LinkedIn Live, day 2.